area hatuna amani kabisa.
Looming humanitarian crisis at Kapedo amid rising tension.
There is no county government official anywhere in this country who needs 26 police officers to guard them.
Matiang'i promises radical changes in the police force as IPOA's mandate draws to a close.
What has been carried or what has been aired has been based on one side of the story.
City Hotel releases CCTV footage of woman at the center of a row on breastfeeding in public. And on Area Code tonight, we visit Nairobi's 46-year-old Madaraka estate.
All right, many thanks for staying with us here on KTN News. Those are just some of the highlights of the stories that our team here in the newsroom are working on to bring to you at the top of the hour with my colleague Linda Ogutu. But we continue now with the big story where tonight we are looking at the IPOA report that was handed in today as the board has just finished its term. And I want to continue with you, Kagwe. What specific challenges have you faced as civilians conducting oversight over the police service, noting that the late Interior CS, former CS for Interior, had said that civilians cannot really conduct oversight on the police?
It's very interesting that of course we have to respect the dead, and we can't speak ill of the dead. But I will tell you something. I'm a researcher. I have researched the world over. Even, let me begin with the United States of America. Citizen reviews exist in nearly all of the East Coast of the United States. Citizen review boards exists in the Midwest and some in the West of the United States of America. In England and Wales, in Northern Ireland, all of which compose of the United Kingdom, civilians oversee police. In Asia, particularly in countries which are democratic, such as Japan, New Zealand, or Australia, citizens oversee police. The interesting part about your question is that whether civilians can oversee police. I'll begin with our Constitution. Article 239 of the Constitution of Kenya, sub-article 5, says all state security organs are subject to civilian authority. My appointing authority, that time, President Mwai Kibaki, was the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, all of them. I have never recalled whether, or I was not born to know whether even Kibaki, at that time when he was in his young ages, whether attended military school or the police. My current appointing authority, President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, is a civilian. At least for him, I know him. He has never attended any military school or police college. That question is a moot question. Indeed, when we ask these questions, let's do a comparative check across the globe. I'm a student of international relations. We can move from country to country, and you will be shocked that most oversight authority are run by civilians. Whether, for example, we begin in Africa, they are not as powerful as we are, In fact, I would consider IPOA to be the most powerful in Africa right now. When you go to South Africa, you go to Sierra Leone, you go to Malawi, you go to Zambia, citizens. Or even Lesotho, which is starting very recently. When you go to Europe, most of them are run by civilians. The question about civilian accountability over the work of the police is as old as history. But furthermore, principally speaking, as Sir Robert Peel, the father of modern policing, has always stated, police are public, and the public are the police. There is nothing interesting about police work that civilians do not know. It is a fact. But looking at the challenges, and I want to end by saying the following. Many scholars have written, but the best review of civilian challenges, civilian oversight challenges all over the world, are based on 4 key challenges. Number 1 is the power of the recommendations. IPOA has made many recommendations, some of which are not implemented by the police. But I can assure you, over the last 6 years, some of the recommendations have been implemented by the judiciary. And I am happy as I leave office today because Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, has already implemented some of the recommendations we proposed. For example, you put a clip about the question of police deployment as bodyguards of people. You have 26 people guarding one fellow. You have the police leasing vehicles instead of purchasing them. Then you have also another recommendations made on police housing. These recommendations are powerful. Police did not implement them, but by grace of God, we have Dr. Matiang'i in office, and he's not implementing them through directives. Mm-hmm. He's read all our reports. But one thing I must mention beyond recommendations, the other challenge of oversight, is political will. As we began, we had a lot of political will from President Mwai Kibaki and Prime Minister Raila Odinga. But in between the process, that will was tested. But the parliament, particularly the the Parliamentary Committee on National Security and Administration, today led by Honorable Koinange, those people have defended our independence to the hilt. So if you threaten civilian oversight all over the world, it's political will and lack of way of implementing our recommendations.
Right.
But the most important thing is support by civil society. I will not say the 4th one, let me say the 3rd one and end there. Civil society all over the world, if they do not support civilian oversight, that civilian oversight crumbles from day one. We have a very strong and vibrant civil society, of which I am a member and I have never left.
Right.
I was just loaned to government for some time. And my colleagues are there, they can confirm that.
Right, and we have the members from the civil society with us here in studio. And I want to engage you, Mr. Atiang. What do you think are some of the necessary steps to take to ensure that the team that comes in next would take this particular mandate to the next level and have more efficiency by the authority?
Thank you very much, Sophia. I think, in my view, one of the things that we are looking forward to is the fact that the inaugural board of IPOA leaves office today. So we are keen to see the process of putting in place the new board, because in the new board then we'll have a leadership that is able to guide IPOA as an institution. So I think one of the things that as civil society we are keen on is to see the process of the new board. But we are not just talking about the process alone. We want to look at, in terms of integrity, because I think the board that is leaving office today has really shown some level of professionalism, and really, they've really worked around in terms of putting up the institution. So we don't want a situation where we are going to lose the gains that the institution has made. So I think we need to be keen, one, to look at how fast the relevant government institutions would be able to swing in place to replace the board. And I think the CS today in this meeting did make a commitment that they would be able to fast track. That is one. But two, is also in terms of the general public. You know, the general public is not interested about so many things. The general public is interested about a few things. One of the things we would want to see going forward is the turnaround time in terms of investigations and in terms of actions around those investigations. If you look at your data, if you look at the information coming out in terms of the number of cases that have been handled, in terms of the process, in terms of the outcome of those cases, yes, I think the information is beautiful. But I'm also worried that it took quite too long, really, for IPOA to come out and tell us exactly what are the figures and the numbers. So we really need, with the new system in place that was launched almost around a month ago, we need to see a better turnaround time in terms of the cases that go to IPOA, so that the general public can be able to see the feedback in terms of the cases they put in place.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, and let me engage Mr. Khalid from Mombasa. You really are one of those guys that have, boots on the ground, especially with regards to cases of human rights violations and extrajudicial killings. What would you say, in your view, are some of the specific challenges, faced when conducting investigations and prosecutions of such cases against police officers, and what can be done to, seal these gaps?
Yes, thank you very much. And as you know, Haki Africa has presented over 100 cases of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances to the IPOA over the term of the inaugural board. We've received very good feedback in some of the cases, but in majority of the cases, understandably so, the challenge has been capacity. So in terms of moving forward, number one, we want to see total independence of the IPOA in undertaking its mandate. We know that there have been challenges, there have been interference by the executive, there has been interference by the National Police Service Commission, the Office of the Inspector General, Parliament also. They've tried to water down the laws that actually govern the administration and the work of IPOA. So in moving forward, number one, we need to see total independence, and I want to thank the outgoing board for the marvelous job they've done to assert their authority. Number two, in moving forward, we must have the capacity of IPOA addressed urgently. Currently, we know that resources have been minimized. Their work has been frustrated in one way or another. Budget constraints are there. We believe that in the minimum, whatever budget they're operating on, it needs to be tripled. This is to enable them to be able to do their work without, having to consider the issue of resources. Because police independence is very important. Any democratic society cannot claim to be free, cannot claim to be operating under the required governance structures if the police are operating with impunity. So that's the second bit. The third bit, we want to see improved partnership with partners such as National Police Service Commission, partners such as the Office of the Inspector General. Civil society can play a very crucial role in furthering the work of the authority. So number three for us, very, very important, is to see increased partnership, because even if we have the agency on its own, it cannot be able to address these issues. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, for example, has come out very openly and clearly to say, corruption is a big problem in the police force. So how can the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission work with the agency in ensuring matters of corruption are minimized? So these are the three key ingredients we feel as Haki Africa, if addressed today, then it doesn't matter who comes into office. We will be able to have an agency that is delivering on the mandates that Kenyans have bestowed on it.
Right, fantastic insights. And as we wind up, Mr. Kagwe, the chairman, outgoing chairman, mentioned today that the biggest thing really ailing the police service is management and leadership. What kind of leadership should we aspire to have for the optimum performance of the service?
I think the chairman, just like me, who has spent about a decade working on police reforms, has nailed it. That is our take home. As he said, I've spent about a decade just like him. The lack of strategic direction by the police, regardless of whether they have a strategic plan, it's their Waterloo. The next IG, as I said in 2012, should be recruited outside the police. Somebody who understands what strategic management and strategic leadership is all about. The police may say this is their profession, this is their disciplined service, this is what, but without strategic management, performance, and risk management, we will continue saying the same thing. But more importantly, which for me is horrible about today's leadership of the police, we will appreciate them for the sacrifices they made. I am not in doubt. But so long as you continue saying there are few rotten apples in the police, that is refusal to face facts. Living in denial, in the words of Matiang'i, will not solve the problems of the police. We need to agree on principle. Police are rotten because of systemic and structural challenges, which must be dealt with radically by ensuring the leadership of the police first are not connected to issues surrounding small battles with IPOA or other institutions. We need to agree on principle. People must stop this blame game of saying we have a few rotten apples, many of the people are okay. They are not. This is refusal to accept what is a fact. It's systemic and structural. And leadership that is strategic must come in tomorrow, if not yesterday.
Respectfully, sir, I have to cut you off because we have completely run out of time for the show tonight. But I must thank you all for joining me to have this all-important conversation, one that surely must be continuing even as the process of instituting a new board for IPOA is set to begin. So thank you all. Hassan Khalid, Executive Director of Haki Africa, Jacob Etiang from Usalama Reforms Forum, and Mr. Tom Kagwe, an outgoing commissioner with IPOA. Many thanks for watching The Big Story tonight. My name is Sharon Momanyi. Have a good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.